Now back to our top story this morning. Apologies we weren't able to bring it to you earlier. Some technical problems were causing us to have to suspend for a little while. We're back with it now though, £500,000 already, and the ongoing saga surrounding Cumbria's suspended Chief Constable Stuart Hyde is still not over. In the latest twist, he's been suspended by the county's Crime and Police Commissioner Richard Rhodes, who's calling on him to resign or retire. But that's despite not one but two investigations finding that his actions have not amounted to misconduct. Both Mr Rhodes and Mr Hyde have refused to be interviewed this morning, but the ongoing legal issues is what's stopping them from doing that. But reading a prepared statement, Mr Hyde said he's shocked and his continued suspension is a waste of taxpayers' money.
After a year-long inquiry, the investigation has found no evidence of misconduct, gross misconduct or criminality. What I am surprised and shocked about is that the PCC has not accepted their conclusion and has chosen to substitute his own, despite a clear statement that there is no evidence of misconduct.
Well, earlier on breakfast, Robert Oxley from the Taxpayers Alliance said Cumbrians are the ones that are losing out.
Well, it's a very big bill and taxpayers are left footing an incredible amount of money for this saga. The problem is that this has been investigated. There has been the gentleman concerned has been cleared, but yet we don't seem to be any closer to resolving this situation. And while the bill might be £500,000 now, if this gets into further legal wrangling, those costs are only going to rise.
Well, joining me now is former Chief Constable of West Mercia Police, Paul West. Paul runs a not-for-profit organisation called Policing for All, which provides independent professional advice to police and crime commissioners and police and crime panels. Paul West, good morning to you.
Good morning, Richard.
This is verging on farcical, really, isn't it? I mean, Richard Rhodes overstepping his power, do you think?
Well, he's not overstepping his power, but it's interesting that you comment on the huge costs involved already with a Chief Constable suspended for virtually a year and a lengthy investigation ongoing, huge legal costs. The process that he's initiated yesterday will incur yet more and very substantial costs because the Section 38 power, which has never been used before by a Police and Crime Commissioner, also involves lawyers and lengthy procedures, and that's going to add costs to the whole process. So there's still some work to be done.
But all of this coming after we've had two reports clearing Stuart Hyde.
Well, yes. Now, it's important to note that, you said, is the Police and Crime Commissioner overstepping his powers? He's not, because he is actually entitled, as what is called the appropriate authority, to assess the investigation report. And whilst Chief Constable Peter Vaughan and the 7, staff who were working on that investigation for 12 months concluded there was no evidence whatsoever of misconduct, Mr Rhodes is still entitled to take a different view, which is what he's taken. What I think is rather strange is that he commented that he would then choose not to pursue the misconduct route because it would cause additional cost and delay. I'm afraid that's simply not the case. Because he's said that even in his assessment the misconduct does not amount to gross misconduct, that means that the route to be followed if he chose to take a misconduct line would be something called a misconduct meeting, which doesn't involve lawyers and can be organised very quickly. So, his suggestion that somehow if he pursued the misconduct that he believes is made out, it would cost even more money, I'm afraid it's just not true. And the route that he has chosen to take will cost substantial additional funds to the taxpayers and people of Cumbria.
Isn't this a bit rich, though, coming from Richard Rhodes, who says he did nothing wrong when he spent taxpayers' money on luxury chauffeur-driven cars, but then criticises Stuart Hyde for a lack of judgment amounting to misconduct when taking legitimate business trips?
Well, that's for you to say. I'm not going to comment on that particular one, Richard, but I can certainly understand why many people would be having similar thoughts to yourself.
Would you advise the Police and Crime Commissioner Richard Rhodes to drop all this now? Would you advise anybody to say that's it?
I stress that I'm not advising Richard Rhodes, and I would certainly have given differing advice, I'm sure, along the way.
But if you were asked to advise him, what would you say?
Well, if I were asked to advise him now, if I can just go back, there's a really important point, and Richard Rhodes made this in his statement yesterday, that on Friday of this week, 2 days' time, Stuart Hyde reverts to being a Deputy Chief Constable, and in 2 days' time, the Police and Crime Commissioner has no jurisdiction whatsoever over a Deputy Chief Constable. So he's initiated a process yesterday which he knows fine well he cannot pursue to the legal ends. I think that is a I think it's potentially a huge argument that abuse of process is going on here. I would have advised Richard Rhodes to get Stuart Hyde back to work this week, give him the misconduct advice that he believes is necessary. If he chooses to suspend Stuart Hyde again, which is what he's done yesterday, he should suspend him as temporary chief constable. He should do that on Friday, and then he could follow the process through. As it is, he's initiated a process that he cannot complete that will be passed over on Friday to the other temporary chief constable, Bernard Lawson. I've described that yesterday as the ultimate hospital pass. It's not a good situation.
Paul, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks for joining us this morning. Paul West, former chief constable of West Mercia Police and now a private consultant.